Good afternoon, yes. Thanks for correcting. Good afternoon. It's just 2 minutes past, yeah. Yeah, we can start. Sorry? You take the photographs. Oh, you're taking the photographs. Okay, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So shall we?
Yeah, please.
Hello and welcome to this post-policy press conference. With us today we have Governor Shri Shaktikant Das, Deputy Governor Shri M.K. Jain, Dr. Michael D. Patra, Shri M. Rajeshwar Rao, Shri T. Ravi Shankar, and we have Executive Directors Dr. O.P. Mal and Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, along with my colleague Monish Kapoor. I welcome all of you for this press conference. And without much ado, let me begin by inviting Governor to make opening remarks, and then we will go by, taking your questions one by one. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Yogesh. By way of opening remarks, I have 6 points to make. The first point is that the rate action this time, it is obviously a pause in rate action in this meeting of the MPC. Future action will depend on the evolving situation. Number 2, headline inflation has eased, so also all its components. But there is no room for complacency. The MPC remains resolutely focused on 4% inflation target in the interest of sustainable growth. Number 3, the Indian economy presents a story of resilience with macroeconomic and financial stability. Prospects for growth are steadily improving and becoming broad-based. Number 4, healthy twin balance sheets of banks and corporates also augur well for GDP growth. 5, the external sector is eminently viable as reflected in the current account deficit situation, stability of the Indian rupee, and build-up of forex reserves. Number 6, RBI's liquidity management will be nimble and two-sided as per requirement and as demonstrated in our recent actions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll begin the press conference by inviting Shri Jeevan Bhas for asking his question.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर, जीवन हियर फ्रॉम आकाशवाणी. सर, हम ये जानना चाहते कि सीबीडीसी का पब्लिक लॉन्च कब तक हो पाएगा और आम आदमी कब तक सीबीडीसी यूज़ कर पाएंगे?
आई थिंक डिप्टी गवर्नर रवि शंकर आप रिप्लाई करें.
थैंक यू गवर्नर. हम कोई स्पेसिफिक डेट माइंड में रख के अभी प्लान नहीं कर रहे हैं. जैसे कि पहले भी बोल चुके हैं, ये ग्रेजुअल रहेगा, कैलिब्रेटेड रहेगी, क्योंकि हम उसका इम्पैक्ट एसेस करते हुए लर्न एज वी गो, जैसे बोलते हैं अंग्रेजी में, वैसे करते हुए आगे बढ़ेंगे. अभी फ़िलहाल अभी का प्लान ये है कि बाय एंड जून 1 मिलियन कस्टमर्स होना चाहिए हमारे लिए. और दूसरा एक चीज़ हम अभी प्लान कर रहे हैं, यूपीआई के साथ उसका क्यूआर कोड इंटरऑपरेबल कर लेंगे.
धन्यवाद सर. नाउ आई मूव टू फाइनेंशियल एक्सप्रेस पीयूष शुक्ला.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you, Yogi sir, for taking the
Little
question.
louder, please.
Yeah. Am I audible better? Yeah. Sir, just wanted your perspective on SBI moving the Supreme Court seeking clarification on fraud classification. The Supreme Court had issued some notice regarding that. So is the RBI, because some of the banks have stopped marking accounts as fraud, they are waiting for more clarity from the RBI. So is the RBI going to issue a detailed circular in this regard on fraud classification? Separately, sir, you had said that, the foreign countries with excess rupee can invest in GSEC and T-bills. So actually, what is the amount that has been invested by foreign countries in this?
You see, under this rupee Vostro account, the international settlement of trade in rupee through the arrangement of rupee Vostro accounts, the process has already started. As regards investment in Indian securities or bonds, etc., naturally, being the first time, the central banks as well as the banks on the other side, through discussions, bilateral discussions, they are seeking some further clarity. It is under discussion with them, and we expect the process to begin soon. With regard to fraud classification, I would request Deputy Governor Jain to please take that question.
Thanks, Governor. As you are aware that the Supreme Court has given its judgment that a natural justice has to be provided to the borrower before declaring the fraud. And subsequently, SBI filed the review petition, and there basically Supreme Court has clarified that there is no need for giving a personal hearing, while they are allowing to file a review petition for the remaining part of the SBI. So we are reviewing the entire guidelines on the fraud, and in consultation with various stakeholders, and we will come out with our guidelines very shortly. But nevertheless, the Supreme Court judgment is applicable to all the regulated entities irrespective of RBI's guidelines.
So by when can we expect the circular to come out?
Very shortly.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Lata Venkatesh from CNBC TV 18.
So, Yogesh said everybody had one question, so don't count that in my quota. This is all the details on 2,000 rupee notes. How much has come back so far? How much of it was exchanged, and how much of it came as deposits? Then I'll ask my MPC question.
Oh, it's a prelude.
So this is not
I
part
thought
of it.
many others wanted to ask this question, so you have preempted that. Now, so far as 2,000 rupee banknotes are concerned, you would recall that we had said as on 31st March 31st March this year, totally 3,62,000 crore notes, 2,000 rupee notes were in circulation. After the announcement that we made, totally so far about 1,80,000 crores, 1.8 lakh crores of 2,000 rupee notes have come back. And this is roughly about 50% of the 2,000 notes which were in circulation on 31st March. So 50%, with reference to that number, 50% has come back after our announcement. And so far as there has been question about how much of exchange, how much of deposits, that figure needs a lot of reconciliation, because we find that there is some amount of overlap in reporting. So we want to avoid any possibility of double counting. So we are reconciling the figures. But broadly, on a provisional basis, I can say that about 85% of the 2,000 rupee notes are coming back as deposits into bank accounts. And let me also take this opportunity to say that this is, more or less, this is in line with our expectations. And the good thing is that there has not been any rush in any of the banks. Going forward, I would, through you, appeal to everyone not to rush or not to go to the bank in a panic. Go at whenever you are free, आराम से जाइए. But at the same time, one more request. Generally, the habit is, we do things at the last moment. So please avoid last minute rush in the last 10-15 days of September. Wider dissemination के लिए अगर मैं हिंदी में बोलना चाहूँ तो बोलना चाहूँगा दो शब्द कि जैसे मैंने पहले 2 हफ्ते पहले मैंने कहा था कि आप आराम से जब भी आपको टाइम हो आप जाके एक्सचेंज कर दीजिए या आप 2,000 रुपी नोट अपने अकाउंट में डिपॉजिट कर दीजिए. कोई जल्दबाजी करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. करेंसी हमारे पास बहुत स्टॉक से, कोई जल्दबाजी की ज़रूरत नहीं है. आराम से आपके सुविधा के अनुसार आप उसको डिपॉजिट करिए या एक्सचेंज करिए. बट उसके साथ साथ मैं ये भी कहना चाहूँगा कि 30 सितंबर मतलब वो लास्ट जो 10-15 दिन होता है 30 सितंबर से पहले, उस वक्त किसी तरह की मतलब सडन पैनिक रश क्रिएट मत करिए. आराम से, अभी तो बहुत टाइम है. उसके अंदर आप आपके टाइम के हिसाब से जब भी आपको सुविधा हो रहा है तो आप उसको डिपॉजिट कर दीजिए या एक्सचेंज कर दीजिए. थैंक यू.
Okay. So, my question is on liquidity. The way the Reserve Bank, there seems to be a greater willingness to do VRRs, that is removal of liquidity, and a slight hesitation in doing repo auctions, which is giving liquidity. So from that, should we understand that RBI would be happier if the weighted average call rate lay between 6.5 and 675? The comfort is more if it is higher and not as much when it is lower. And considering that banks also have been hesitant to, you say that they are very cautious about giving you money in VRRR, will you look for more enduring ways like, an OMO purchase or something like that?
You see, our target of monetary policy, as you know, is 6.5% is the policy repo rate. And typically our expectation is that, and what we would like to see is that the overnight call rates are also aligned to 6.5%. Beyond that, it is a function of day-to-day fluctuation or, week-to-week fluctuation in the overall liquidity situation. So we expect and we would like the overnight call rates to be aligned with 6.5% policy rate. Now, whether there is a preference for VRR or VRRR, that is variable rate repo auction or a reverse repo auction, that depends on the prevailing situation in the market, and we, as I said, we will remain very flexible. We will remain very nimble. We will act swiftly as we have done over the last 4 days. We'll remain nimble. We will remain flexible. And I have also said in my statement that, I just mentioned it in my opening remarks here, that we will do two-sided operations as per requirement. Anything else you would like to add?
No. Other than repo, since in the VRRRs the banks have been cautious, will you look for other instruments?
No, I think that as and when we will decide, you will know. But banks have been cautious, and let me make also one point. I think there is still some amount of liquidity sitting there. When we say banks are cautious, let us remember that through the VRRR auctions, which we have done, and some of it is maturing today. Till yesterday, about 1,50,000 crores of rupees 1,50,000 crores have been mopped up through VRRR operations.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Mr. Govardhan Rangan from Economic Times.
Thank you. So again, on the liquidity issue, so there is a feeling that the entire liquidity dynamics has changed in the last few months or the quarters because of the 24/7 payments. So there is a feeling that 1% of NDTL that used to be a case, that itself may have to be relooked at. So, and you also mentioned in your speech that banks are cautious. So there seems to be a kind of so liquidity control. How do you address it? Is there a need for a policy overall or need to relook at that?
I would request
Thank
Deputy
you.
Governor Michael Patra to take that question.
Yeah, it's true that there are payments transaction going through till the middle of the night. But as banks get used to this, the liquidity is balancing out. If you saw, there was a lot of tightness till the middle of May. But after that, there has been an easing of liquidity. So banks are slowly getting used to that transactions coming in late. And in any case, after 5:30, we have standing windows open and an ASISO facility which will sweep in and sweep out. So banks are not inconvenienced by it.
So just on that, so because the banks are getting used to it, there's also a feeling that neutral liquidity itself will be a kind of a surplus of 60,000 crores or 70,000 crores. The definition of neutral itself is getting so redefined. Is that the case?
No, we abandoned that quantitative ceiling. Right now, we look at the call money rate and look at it to get aligned with the repo rate. As soon as it gets aligned, we feel its liquidity is balanced out.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Manojit Saha from Business Standard.
Thank you. Last evening also RBI released a list of forex online forex platforms which are unauthorized. Earlier there was a list also, but those applications are still there in the Google Play Store and all. So is there any further steps RBI is contemplating to curb those issues?
I think Dr. Patre, you can take that question.
Yeah. So, Manoj, you are right that we issued a list yesterday. So, there is actually a two-pronged approach to this. One is to build up levels of awareness. And for that purpose, RBI not only issues those lists which say unauthorized, but we also give you a list of authorized platforms. The other thing that we do is we interact very closely with the enforcement agencies, the ministries like Information Technology and Finance. And they are taking action as an ongoing basis. You know, already we are hearing of various platforms being raided and their assets seized. So action is taking place there. The third line of action should be the tech companies which are uploading those mobile apps should apply caution and ensure that what they are uploading is by the laws of the land.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Swati Khandelwal from Z Business.
थैंक यू योगेश सर पिछले पॉलिसी से इस पॉलिसी में ऑफ कोर्स 2000 रुपए का नोट वाज अ बिग मूव एवरीबडी वाज टेकन बाय सरप्राइज आगे जिस तरह से ऑफ कोर्स आपने उस पर रिस्पॉन्ड किया कि किस तरीके का उस पर आपको रिस्पांस मिला है लेकिन सवाल ये है कि मार्केट में लोग जो एंड ये लोगों के बिहाफ पे सर लॉट ऑफ आवर कंज्यूमर्स आर पीपल हु वॉच अस आस्क अस कि क्या इस तरीके का मूव के लिए प्रिपेयर रहें आगे क्या आरबीआई 1000 रुपये का नोट इशू करेगा या 500 रुपीज़ के साथ भी ऐसा हो सकता है एंड इट्स अ वैलिड क्वेश्चन सर पीपल हैव दैट इन देयर माइंड्स तो आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे उन लोगों को जिनके ये सवाल हैं उनको क्या करना चाहिए क्या इस पर आरबीआई का ऐसा कुछ विचार है ऐसा कुछ सोच है व्हाट इज़ योर रिस्पॉन्स ऑन दैट
आपने कहा कि 1000 रुपया नोट इंट्रोड्यूस होगा क्या 500 रुपया नोट को विथड्रॉ करेंगे क्या
जी
इस सारे मामले में मेरे पास तो कोई जानकारी नहीं है और ऐसा भी आज के तारीख में और ऐसा भी कोई थिंकिंग नहीं है
ओके तो दैट्स
सो देयरफॉर किसी तरह की स्पेकुलेशन मार्केट में किसी तरह का स्पेकुलेशन ना किया जाए मैं आपके माध्यम से सारे लोगों को जनरल पब्लिक को कहना चाहता हूं कि किसी तरह का स्पेकुलेशन मत करिए अभी ये जो आप कह रहे हैं मैंने कहा कि मेरे पास जानकारी नहीं है और ऐसा कोई आइडिया भी नहीं है
वंडरफुल थैंक यू सर ये इंपॉर्टेंट क्लैरिफिकेशन है और अब ईसीएल पे सर सवाल है क्योंकि यहाँ पर एक्सपेक्टेड क्रेडिट लॉसेस को लेकर जो थॉट प्रोसेस है उस पर ये समझ में आ रहा है कि बैंक्स ऐसा सोच रहे हैं कि 30 जून से ये लागू हो जाएगा क्या ये सही है इस पर एक्चुअली इस वक्त सिचुएशन क्या है उस पर आप अपडेट दीजिए एंड व्हाट इज़ द फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्रीज व्यू ऑन इट सर क्योंकि शायद वहाँ पर कुछ अभी सहमति नहीं बनी है बिटवीन आरबीआई एंड फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री इज दैट करेक्ट और नॉट
अब आरबीआई और फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के बाद क्या हो रहा है तो मेरे को इवन आई एम नॉट अवेयर बट आई थिंक लेट डिप्टी गवर्नर राजेश्वर राव टेक दैट क्वेश्चन
No, I think the issue we have received what do you call comments from all the concerned stakeholders. The comments are still being evaluated. Some more refinements and work is done. So at this point in time, I don't think it's correct to infer that 30th June would be the date when it's going to be launched. That is an absolutely incorrect assumption. I will stop it with that.
No. You see, आप देखिए, you look at our track record. हमारा ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड क्या रहा है पिछले कई सालों में हम टाइम देते हैं कंप्लायंस के लिए ये नहीं कि आज एक अनाउंस कर दिया और कल से आप ये रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइंस इंट्रोड्यूस करिए ईसीएल का इम्पैक्ट जो है वो बैंकों को टाइम देना चाहिए तो वी विल गिव देम सफिशिएंट टाइम फॉर इम्प्लीमेंटेशन और आप अगर देखेंगे पिछले कई सालों में जब भी हम एक नए रेगुलेटरी गाइडलाइन इशू करते हैं तो टाइम देते हैं कि फलाना तारीख से आप इंट्रोड्यूस करिए तो इसीलिए ये ईसीएल के बारे में भी मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि कोई तरह की मतलब देयर इज नो नीड टू क्रिएट एनी पैनिक और एनीथिंग द कमेंट्स हैव बीन रिसीव्ड एज द डिप्टी गवर्नर हैज पॉइंटेड आउट कमेंट्स हैव बीन रिसीव्ड दे आर अंडर एग्जामिनेशन एंड विल इशू द सर्कुलर बट वी आर माइंडफुल ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट द बैंक्स विल नीड सम टाइम टू इम्प्लीमेंट इट
ऑलराइट थैंक यू
No, we have assessed it, but let me not go into that. and it's quite manageable limits. That's per our assessment, but let's leave it at that.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Anup Roy from Bloomberg.
Thank you, sir. Sir, why not change the stance to neutral? And have you pivoted? Because last time you stressed that this is a pause, not a pivot, but this time you didn't mention that. So should we interpret it as pivot?
I would mention only if there is a change. So it is a pause in this meeting of the MPC, and I have not said anything about the pivot. So whatever I said in the last meeting that it's not a pivot, I reiterate that. Anything you want to add further on the change of stance, etc.?
Sir, I'll move on to... We'll come back to you. We'll move on to Mr. Ankur Mishra from ET Now.
Michael.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. Good afternoon, Governor. I want to ask regarding the same question only regarding the stance. आपने अपने जो speech में sir last में बोला that often it is said that in the end it becomes little difficult, and hence you have mentioned that future actions will be based on evolving situations. That situation has improved from last time. How should we infer that, not mentioning of exact word of pivot? It's not. I mean, you have mentioned. But you believe that it is, we are much closer to the change in stance than we were last time?
You see, I have said in my statement, and that is the MPC's view also, that our target is 4%. So our effort will be also to align all our actions to move towards that target and reach the target. So it will therefore depend on the evolving situation. To say anything more than that, given the kind of uncertainties which still persist, and I have listed them out in my statement. So given that kind of uncertainties, to say anything other than what I have said, that our endeavor is to align the inflation target to 4%, we will move towards 4%. And we will be very watchful of the evolving situation and modulate our action suitably. To say anything more than that at this stage is not desirable. And last year also, about a year ago, we have said that given the high uncertainty which is prevailing all over, not just in India, I mean, particularly in the external sector, and especially when we are in a tightening cycle, it's not desirable to give any forward guidance, because that may create, expectations which may not be aligned with our thinking or our action. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Swati Bhatt from Reuters.
Thank you, Yogesh sir. So I had a two-part question. I mean, one is, apart from a slowdown in growth, what would be the other factors that would, prompt the MPC to start cutting rates? Is there a level of real rate which will make it restrictive for the economy to keep growing? That's one. And there are expectations that the Fed could continue to keep hiking rates. So is RBI comfortable with a rising interest rate differential with the Fed? Thank you.
I'll ask Deputy Governor Dr. Patra to reply that question, but just one point I would like to mention, that our monetary policy actions, as I have been saying time and again, are determined primarily by the domestic conditions. We do not look at the action of other central banks to determine our actions. But yes, we do watch what other central banks are doing, because that will have an impact on the global financial situation, the financial sector situation, on currency markets and other aspects. But our actions are determined primarily by our domestic factors. You would like to take? Yeah.
So we have described to you what exactly is our comfort zone. And that is that when inflation aligns with a target and growth returns to potential after the shock it received from the pandemic. Both are work in progress. There is a little better progress on the growth front. inflation is also progressing towards our goal, but not as fast as growth is normalizing. So we'll look at both to take the next step.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Mayur Shetty from Times of India.
Thank you, Yogesh. Governor, recently the Kannungo committee had submitted that recommendation on customer service standards. So I want to know when, how would these standards be enforced? And in that context, there were two incidents that videos which were circulating in social media. One was of a bank manager pushing the staff to sell insurance policies instead of the need-based selling that RBI requires. And the other is of a regulated entity saying that if people do not want to be disturbed, they should not, if they want to opt out of our calls, then they should not come back for loans in future. So whether such issues would get addressed in future.
Let me respond about the Kannungo's committee report. We have put it out on our website for public comments. By and large, this committee basically has focused on adequacy of regulatory and institutional framework, the customer experience, efficacy of grievance redressal, extent of customer education and awareness. These are the 5 areas where they have focused, and we will wait for the public comments and then we will decide what can be implemented, what cannot be implemented. On the calls, basically, as far as recovery agents is concerned, we have already issued our guidelines and we have put out our code that what they have to follow for the recovery agents. For the marketing call, this is the decision of the individual banks, and the TRI has to really look into if there is a do not registry done by any customers. But nevertheless, this issue which you have brought it out, we will examine it separately.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Gopika Gopakumar from the Mint.
So again, a two-part question. First is on the liquidity. At the time of demonetization, RBI had introduced an incremental CRR. Do you think that is required at this point in time? And secondly, do you think after SEBI, will RBI also look at coming out with regulations on financial influencers?
No, so far as financial influencers are concerned, we have no such thinking. SEBI is already dealing with it, so in RBI we have no such thinking to issue, to get into that territory. SEBI is already looking at it. And with regard to the other part of the question, now that will depend. That will depend on the situation. I don't want to speculate what action we will take. But just keep in mind that we have mopped up 1.5 lakh crores through our VRRR auctions. And that process is already on. We will see going forward.
Sir, I'll now invite Mr. Pankaj Ahe from Informist Media to ask his question.
Thank you, sir. Governor, sir, there's a big difference between the earlier policy statements and this one in the fact that earlier policy statements spoke predominantly about the flexibility of the inflation target. Today, you have been very clear that 4% is the target. I think it's been a while since we heard that, and I think I would like to know a bit more about that. Also, while talking about the stance you have quoted Mr. Mahatma Gandhi put together, does the market now take it that a rate cut potentially or a stance change is on the table only when inflation reaches 4%?
What I have said is that our target and our endeavor will be to see that the inflation aligns with the target on a durable basis. Let me clarify. We will wait for, our effort is to ensure that the inflation, actual CPI headline inflation aligns with the target on a durable basis, not one-off basis, at any point of time. With regard to the band and the specific target, the primary target of monetary policy, as you would know, is 4%. During the stressful times of COVID and thereafter when the Ukraine war broke out and the fallout of the Ukraine war, we operated within the band. We used the flexibility which is available to Monetary Policy Committee. We operated within that band. So we were tolerant of inflation above 4%, and our effort was to always keep it below 6%. So we were tolerant of inflation above 4%, but focus was to remain within the target band. But now the situation has changed. There is now greater certainty, and I have mentioned in my opening lines also, there is now greater certainty, and the overall path looks clear, much clearer than it was earlier. So therefore, we are now targeting 4%.
Thank you, sir. I'll invite Mr.
Which is our primary target.
Sir, I'll invite Mr. Vishwanath Nair from BQ Prime.
Governor, a quick question. I'm coming back to the liquidity question because that's all that is important here at this point in time. You're talking about a 1.5 lakh crore mop up from the system because of ABRRR, but your auctions were like 4.5 lakh crore. If we put all the auctions together. So I'm just trying to understand what is the reason for this caution amongst banks, firstly. And secondly, if you look at the way the interest rates, lending rates and deposit rates are panning out in the system, the RBI's data suggests that in April, fresh loan and fresh deposit rates have actually fallen 12, 20 basis points. It's a marginal fall, but still, at a time when you're talking about status quo, rates falling may not be go well for transmission.
The reason for caution among banks is that there is an imminent advance tax outflow, which is always sizable. That will happen in the next week, so they are holding back money for that purpose. But as you saw, we were persevering in our efforts, and the fact that we repeated our auctions indicated our purpose, which is what we wanted to convey. It was important, therefore, to withdraw that excess liquidity so that the deposit rate, lending rate softening that was happening was more aligned with what the interest rate cycle is. And that is why we have withdrawn 1,50,000 so far, as Governor pointed out.
Thank you, sir.
No, that is exactly why we withdrew liquidity.
Thank you, sir. I'll move on to Ms. Anshika Kayasth from Hindu Business Line.
Now, it is necessary that any segment of the market does not prematurely assume certain things and then start cutting rates, or both whether in the asset side or deposit side, whether it is interest rates or in the deposit side. It's a commercial decision. I mean, as you know, that interest rates and both deposit rates as well as interest rates for loans are all deregulated. Banks are free to do it. But if they are doing it on the assumption of a certain action which is likely to be taken by RBI, I think that would be wrong. And just hold a moment. And as Deputy Governor clarified very clearly, our liquidity action also should be seen in the context that our monetary policy stance and our policy rate are well aligned with the interest rates which are prevailing in the market, including banks.
Thank you, sir. I'll request Anshika to go ahead.
Sir, first, has the framework for settlement and write-offs, the decision to issue a framework, been triggered by the huge amount of write-offs that we saw post-COVID? And is the RBI concerned because the recoveries from written off accounts has been underwhelming so far? And a second very quick question, the RBI is looking to issue FLDG guidelines, but to understand what were the points of contention till now and what is the direction that the RBI is looking in now? Thank you.
Now, on FLDG guidelines, you will have to wait for the circular. It will come out very, very shortly. And on the other component about compliance, etc., I would request Deputy Governor Rajeshwar Rao to take that question.
No, I don't think it is correct to infer that the write-offs has actually triggered the issue of compromise settlement. Essentially, what we have done is rationalize the existing framework for compromise settlement. These instructions were issued across several circulars at different points in time, and they have now been actually brought in one place and enabled. That is one. And a more significant factor is this has been extended to the urban cooperative banks also, which was not there hitherto. So this is the basic change, and that is what has actually been done, nothing more than that.
थैंक यू सर. अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा अनुराग शाह, ET नाउ स्वदेश से.
धन्यवाद सर। नमस्ते सर। सर आपसे ही समझ, जिस तरह से देश के अंदर जो इंश्योरेंस सेक्टर है वो तेज़ी से आगे बढ़ रहा है, सरकार भी चाहती है कि इंश्योरेंस के पेनिट्रेशन को बढ़ाया जाए, तो इंश्योरेंस इंडस्ट्री की डिमांड है कि जो प्रीमियम फाइनेंसिंग होता है, इंश्योरेंस प्रीमियम फाइनेंसिंग, उसको लेकर एक सेपरेट रेगुलेशन लाया जाए, जिस तरह से होम लोन, ऑटो लोन वगैरह पे। तो क्या इस पे रिजर्व बैंक कुछ विचार कर रहा है? क्योंकि सर ये जो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस है उनके लिए भी एक नए एवेन्यूज़ तैयार करेगा, और जिस तरह से टेक्नोलॉजी में बदलाव हुआ है तो उससे इसके आसानी से लागू किया जा सकता है।
वैसे क्रेडिट का जो फैसला है वो एक बोर्ड अप्रूव्ड पॉलिसी के आधार पर बैंक्स डिसाइड करता है, आरबीआई का स्पेसिफिक गाइडलाइन नहीं है। और ये इंश्योरेंस प्रीमियम फाइनेंसिंग जो भी है वो एक प्रोडक्ट होगा और बैंक को उसके ऊपर देखते पोटेंशियल को देख के उसको उसके ऊपर फैसला लेना पड़ेगा, और आरबीआई का कोई गाइडलाइन इस पर नहीं है।
सर एक आम लोगों से जुड़ा हुआ सवाल सर, जो क्रेडिट स्कोर है, तो बहुत से लोगों की ये शिकायत होती है कि जिनका कोई क्रेडिट फुटप्रिंट नहीं है वहाँ पर उनको लोन आसानी से नहीं मिल पाता। उदाहरण के तौर पे एक कपल है, तो हस्बैंड क्रेडिट कार्ड यूज़ करता है तो उसको लोन ऑफर हो रहा है, रेट भी कम हो रही है, लेकिन वाइफ ने फाइनेंशियल डिसिप्लिन मेंटेन किया और कभी कोई क्रेडिट नहीं लिया तो उसको लोन नहीं मिल पा रहा है, और मिल भी रहा है तो काफ़ी महंगा मिल रहा है। तो इसको कैसे निपटा जाए? और इसी के कंटिन्यूशन में कोई क्रेडिट स्कोर काफ़ी अच्छा मेंटेन कर रहा है सालों से, 20-25 साल से, लेकिन फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन की गलती की वजह से, मिस सेलिंग की वजह से कुछ डिफ़ॉल्ट हो जाता है, लेकिन उसका खामियाजा जो है उसका स्कोर खराब हो जाता है और उसका कोई निपटारा नहीं हो पाता। तो इस पर आरबीआई का क्या विचार रहेगा?
क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री के बारे में हम वैसे वो क्रेडिट डिसीजन और क्रेडिट फैसला तो बैंक के पॉलिसी पे आधारित है, जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था। और ये जो क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री का इशू है उसमें हमने गाइडलाइन इशू किया था 2014 में कि द फर्स्ट टाइम बोरोवर्स दे शुड नॉट डिपेंड ऑन द credit history should not be a factor for while taking a credit decision. It's one of the best practices recommended by RBI way back in 2014. और दूसरा सवाल जो आपने बताया कि जो अगर क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री गलत है, तो यही है कि आजकल अगस्त लास्ट ईयर द क्रेडिट इंफॉर्मेशन कंपनीज को ओम्बुड्समैन के अंदर लाया गया है, और अक्टूबर में हमने गाइडलाइंस भी इश्यू किया था बैंक CICs को कि वो इंटरनल ओम्बुड्समैन भी अपॉइंट करें। और हमारा गाइडलाइन है कि 30 दिन के अंदर अगर कोई गलत स्कोर होगा तो उसको बैंकों को सुधारना पड़ेगा, CIC और बैंक को मिलके सुधारना पड़ेगा। अगर उन्होंने सुधारा नहीं तो फिर शिकायत ओम्बुड्समैन, इंटरनल ओम्बुड्समैन या RBI ओम्बुड्समैन में वो कर सकते हैं करेक्शन के लिए।
धन्यवाद सर। Now I invite Mr. Hitesh Vyas from Indian Express to ask his question.
Hi sir, good afternoon. Sir, I just want to understand what will be the impact of MSP hike on inflation, and has it been factored into your revised projection for inflation?
Yeah, we got the MSP data yesterday, and we find that the average increase across all crops is about 7.5 to 8%. So over and above our projections, this will impact to the extent of 10 to 12 basis points.
And part of the hike was already, it's already built into our projections. Going by the past, years, the kind of increase that is already built into our projections. So therefore, it will be another, whatever DG says. You are saying another 10 or 12 basis points. That is what. The quick calculations which we have done overnight, that shows.
Thank you, sirs. Now I invite Mr. Sachin Kumar from the New Indian Express.
Sir, good afternoon. You mentioned that your target is to bring inflation at 4%. So, given this, is it safe to assume that now there will be no rate cut in the current fiscal? And secondly, it's regarding 2,000 rupee notes. There are many NRIs which are outside, so and which they may not be able to come back in the deadline. So, do you have some thinking to extend that date, or so that their problem can be addressed?
You see, I mentioned, I had replied to this specific point, I think again 2 weeks ago on last month, on May 22nd, if I remember correctly, in a media interaction. I had specifically said that we are aware that at individual level or at group level, there could be problems. There are Indians who are traveling abroad. Many of them stay with their children for very long periods of time. There are Indians who are H-1B visa holders who live abroad. They may have left behind at home certain 2,000 rupee notes. We are sensitive to all those representations which we keep getting. We will examine them and do whatever is required. But our endeavor will be to see that nobody is put into any inconvenience. We want to see that the whole process goes through very smoothly. And so far as you have seen, it's going through very smoothly. With regard to inflation, I thought I have replied that. But if Deputy Governor Michael Patra can say anything, you can add anything, because I have replied, I think. So you can put in your language.
I think Governor was very categorical on what will the future look like. But I think one thing he has kept on stressing is that we are looking at inflation aligning with the target, not with inflation at target.
Thank you, sirs. I'll move on to Mr. Ben Jose from PTI.
This is regarding some problem customers, many customers face in Kerala. The issue was that when one makes a petty amount, say 100 rupees or 200 rupees payment, UPI payment, their account gets immediately blocked.
Sorry, I can't hear. Can you?
No, in Kerala there were reports, not in the mainstream but in online media, and in some TV channels also there were reports that hundreds of customers were facing, mostly from Federal Bank, customers of Federal Bank, were facing problem wherein after a UPI payment, maybe a small amount, even a chai amount, paying for a tea, their account gets completely blocked. And when they walk into the bank refuses an answer why their accounts are blocked. The only thing the answer they get is that the police from, say, Bihar or Chhattisgarh or Haryana, they ask the banker to block the account. They freeze the account and they can't do any transaction.
Okay. I think Deputy Governor Ravi Shankar can respond.
Yeah, I haven't come across.
And then there are some middlemen engaged in, and the police ask, and actually it is a freezing. Police ask for lakhs of rupees to to reopen the account.
Offhand, there is no reason I can think of why an account should be blocked after a transaction. If it is happening because of, like you're saying, police is getting involved, law enforcement reasons, then we'll have to look into that. We'll have to find out. If it is happening because of some problem at the bank end, then if these issues come to our notice, we will look at that.
No, I think, let me just say, so far this kind of problem which you are referring to has not come to our notice.
Okay.
As and when it comes to our notice, we will also through our own sources find out if there is any such problem, and we will examine it and we'll deal with it.
Okay. Thank you, sirs. I'll take the last question from Manish Suvarna from Money Control.
Thank you, Yogesh. Good afternoon, Governor, sir. So my question is, do you think that repo rate of 6.5% appropriate to sustain growth in the long run? And second is what is the status of that RBI central portal for unclaimed deposit? Thank you.
Central?
RBI centralized portal for unclaimed deposits.
Oh, I see. So the first part of the question, I think you can take. And the portal, I think Deputy Governor Rajeshwar Rao can take.
The rate of 6.5% is adjudged to be appropriate at this point of time. As in when we have new information or new outlook on the goal variables, we will take a new view on the rate.
The work is going on, development, software development, etc. is going on, and as soon as it's ready, we will launch it.
I mean, the market wanted to know why. After all, the last two numbers came down because of a fall in core inflation. You don't see that momentum in the second half because the reduction in the forecast was a little less than what others arithmetically arrived at. So you're not confident that the way core fell in the second half, you could expect a lower inflation?
No, there is momentum, but we would like to see sustained momentum. As I said, for a short period, we would like to see sustained momentum, and there are still uncertainties overall. How the monsoon, the distribution and the timing of the monsoon, the spatial and temporal distribution of monsoon. As I mentioned, there is also a forecast of a El Nino. So with so many uncertainties, our assessment gave these numbers. So We don't want to be sort of, and we would like to see a sustained momentum, sustained momentum towards alignment of inflation actual numbers with the headline target.
Thank you, sir. With this, we...
Will the RBI recommend to the government to withdraw the legal status of 2,000 rupees note after the 30th September?
मेरे जानकारी में तो ऐसा कोई आइडिया नहीं है.
धन्यवाद सर. और with this we come to the conclusion of today's press conference. Thank you everyone for joining in the press conference. I thank the top management of Reserve Bank led by respected Governor Shri Shaktikant Das and Deputy Governors along with Executive Directors. And thank you all media friends for making it here and a very conducive, coordinate press conference. Till next time, thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
एक लंबे अरसे के बाद इस डैम का शटर खुलने जा रहा है।
पब्लिक को पता ही नहीं चल रहा है कि इस परेशानी की वजह क्या है।
देखिए, हमें जो चेतावनी मिली है उससे ये समझ में आ रहा है कि आने वाले कुछ घंटों में तेज बारिश हो सकती है।
देखो, इस मामले को बड़ी ही सूझबूझ से निपटाना होगा और इसकी हर एक अपडेट मुझे चाहिए। सर, एक प्रॉब्लम है।
What happened, कोसी? पर आप देख सकते हैं पूरी तरह से पानी भर चुका है।
अरे तुम आगे कहाँ जा रहे हो? रास्ता बंद है। आ रहे हो?
लोअर परियार का डैम भी खुल गया। अगर कोई फंस जाए तो उसकी डिटेल्स शेयर करना। जो मेरे भाई, हरीश भाई, तो ये है तुम्हारा रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन।
अब तो बस यही है कि वो सही सलामत हो तो कलेजे को ठंड पड़ जाएगी।
इसी व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में कैंप के अरेंजमेंट्स को लेकर
आप देख सकते हैं कि सोशल मीडिया जैसे कि टिकटॉक वगैरह में इंटरेस्ट रखने वाले लोग आज सोशल सर्विस वॉलंटरी में आकर मदद कर रहे हैं।
वो ऐसे दिन आ सकते हैं, किस्मत बचा लेगी। बाहर जाकर देखो तो पता चले गांव की क्या हालत हो रखी है।
पापा और मैं उन्हें बचाने जा रहे हैं, तो बताओ कौन आएगा हमारे साथ?
मछुआरे इस वक्त पूरे केरला के लिए फरिश्ते के रूप में उतरे हैं।
चाचा, चाचा आगे मत बढ़ो।